All right, let's dive into one of the wildest stories in financial history. We're talking about Tulip Mania, what many people call the very first full-blown financial bubble.
I mean, just think about that for a second. It sounds completely insane, doesn't it? How on earth could a simple flower, something that you literally plant in the dirt, become one of the most valuable assets in the entire world? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go back in time.
And this comparison really cuts to the heart of the madness. On one hand, you have a physical house, the ultimate symbol of wealth, of security, and on the other, a flower bulb. And yet, for a brief, crazy moment in time, the desire for that bulb was so powerful that it completely warped what value even meant.
So what was going on? How did we get here? Well, the story starts in one of the richest periods in human history.
This was the Dutch Golden Age. Amsterdam wasn't just a center of the world economy, it was the center. Money was pouring in from all corners of the globe, and a brand new merchant class had insane amounts of cash to spend and, a serious desire to show it off.
So why tulips of all things? Well, they were new, they were exotic, brought in from the Ottoman Empire, making them the ultimate status symbol. But the real prize, the most sought after of all, were these broken bulbs. They had these incredible flame-like patterns that were impossibly rare. Now, what people didn't know back then was that this beautiful break was actually caused by a virus. This made the flower both stunning and scarce, the absolute perfect recipe for a craze.
And, you guessed it, this obsession with a rare flower didn't stay an obsession for long. It quickly spiraled into a full-blown speculative frenzy.
Before we go any further, let's just nail down what we're talking about. A speculative bubble is basically a market panic, but in the opposite direction. It's when excitement and pure greed just take over, and prices completely disconnect from any kind of reality.
And just look at this timeline. The speed is absolutely staggering. What started as an expensive hobby for the wealthy elite turned into a national obsession. Prices didn't just climb, they went vertical. It felt like everyone, from aristocrats down to the local chimney sweeps, wanted in on the action.
This is the crucial point. People completely stopped caring about the actual tulips. They weren't buying bulbs to plant in their gardens. No, they were buying them because they were absolutely convinced they could sell them to someone else for a higher price next week. The bulb itself began irrelevant. Its rising price was the only thing that mattered.
And this is how things got so out of hand. Futures contracts. It meant you didn't even need the money to buy a whole bulb. You could just buy the right to a bulb in the future. Then you could sell that piece of paper, that promise, to someone else for a quick profit. People were making and losing fortunes on flowers that hadn't even been pulled out of the ground yet.
A market that's built on nothing but the belief that prices will always go up. Well, it has only one way to end, and it's not pretty.
As prices reached just astronomical levels, a few people must have started asking that simple, terrifying question. Who is actually going to buy this from me at an even higher price?
And just like that, the music stopped. In the dead of winter, 1637, that collective delusion just shattered. The trigger was a single event. At an auction in the city of Haarlem, for the very first time, there were no buyers. Someone defaulted, and the news of it spread. Suddenly, everyone realized the prices weren't real. Everyone rushed to sell at once, and there was simply nobody left to buy. The collapse was immediate, and it was catastrophic. Prices didn't just fall, they evaporated. We're talking a plummet of over 90% in a matter of weeks. Fortunes were wiped out, and the world's most valuable asset became just a flower again.
The fallout was just chaos. People who thought they were millionaires were bankrupt overnight. They were holding contracts that were worth a fortune just weeks before, and now they were worthless. But the sellers still demanded payment. The government basically stepped back, refused to enforce anything, and the entire market just imploded.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? So before we get to the final lesson here, take a second. What's the craziest bubble or trend you've seen in your own lifetime? Let me know your story in the comments below.
Now, it's really easy to look back at the Dutch in the 1630s and think they were just uniquely foolish. But the patterns of Tulip Mania, they're still with us today.
And this is where the story becomes timeless. Just look at this comparison. The asset changes, sure. The technology changes, from deals in a tavern to hype on social media. But the core psychology, the greed, that fear of missing out, or FOMO, that belief that you can get rich quick, that is absolutely identical.
And that's the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? Tulip Mania wasn't really about tulips. It was about people. It's a timeless story about how our own emotions, our greed, and our fear can drive markets to irrational heights and then to devastating lows.
This quote just says it all perfectly. The details change, but the fundamental story, the boom and the bust, driven by good old-fashioned human nature, that plays out over and over and over again.
Understanding the past is one of the best ways to make sense of the present. For more explainers on historical lessons that are still incredibly relevant today, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching.